Welcome back to the land of crock pots and ice cold drinks and just good old fashioned good times. Glad you are with us wherever you're enjoying it. It's the hospitality room. Bobby Swofford, Blair Cartwright with you. We're presented, of course, by Mascot Media. Mr. Swofford, how are you on this humid Wednesday?
It's very humid. I'm bracing myself. We're expecting some severe weather tonight,
Yeah.
but we need to get it out of the way tonight because we got a lot going on this weekend. Obviously, state tournaments start tomorrow, and I need no weather to affect that.
Speaking of which, and we'll plug this several times during the podcast, live streams at AAAscoreboard.com. We've got baseball, we got softball, we got soccer, all coming to a head this weekend. And then, of course, that means state championships
That's
next
right.
weekend. I mean,
Yeah,
wow, it is coming to a head.
yeah. It's funny because I walked into work one day last week and there was nothing but like box after box after box. I'm like, oh, well, apparently the UPS man was busy today. And then you go back there a couple days later, and then all of a sudden we've got 20 state championship and 20 runner-up
Wow.
trophies put together and on the table back there. And I was like, there's a lot of people who'd like to have access to these right now, but not till next weekend.
Yes. And next weekend, of course, also high school graduations all over the state. So it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a busy next 2 weeks, not only getting the
No doubt.
tournaments in and battling the weather, but then you've got the unenviable task of trying to schedule championships around graduations. And man,
Yeah.
I do not envy you.
Yeah, we've got a list, a Google sheet of about 310 schools, I believe it is, that compete in high school athletics, and we have all their graduation date listed, and we have all their sports that are still alive in the postseason, and so we can just kind of go through and sharpie them out at the end of each day. But obviously, next weekend we'll have to figure out. Okay, this school is graduating on this time. That means they can play on this day, and this, but also get it to work for not only because you think of go, okay, there's only 6 baseball games, so 12 graduations. Well, we got okay. What about their softball team? When are they
Mm-hmm.
graduating? What about the soccer teams? And so there's a lot of moving parts that certainly go into it. It's an unenviable task, and a lot of people are going to complain about it because they don't know how the process works. But obviously, these are probably the two biggest moments in a lot of these kids' lives ever.
Oh,
It's ever
yeah.
going to happen. Is one as they graduate high school, two they compete for a state championship, and we want them to be able to experience both of them. We don't want that scenario where a kid has to pick, has to
Yeah.
choose. And so we do everything we can to avoid that.
Understandable. It is going to be a fun next 2 weeks. So let's get right to our headlines. And first, well, the baseball team kind of stumbled a little bit in
Mm-hmm.
Lexington, and I don't. But then a lot of the top dogs, Texas A&M was number one going
Yeah.
in. They lost two or three. Arkansas lost two or three. I guess Tennessee vaults into that. Almost don't know that you want to be one or two, but do we need to be concerned? Razorbacks host Mississippi State, kind of a bounce back weekend, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to concern. I mean, you're still talking about they're what now 11-2 in series this year, over the
Mm-hmm.
weekend. So this is not becoming a trend. Even if they lose the series this weekend and maybe even next weekend, okay, then you get worried. But I mean, losing a series on the road at a team that, oh by the way, is ranked in the top 10. Oh by the way, they're in first place in the other division in the conference. There's
Yeah.
there's really not a lot to be concerned. If you're looking for specific things to worry about, I mean, something that you and I have talked about, and everybody else is probably talking about it too, is the lack of timely hitting. Arkansas have continued to put runners on base, even though I'm not going to say they got blown out in Game 3, but obviously they got blown out in Game 2. They had runners on base. I mean, they had guys, they had chances to start to chip away at some of those Kentucky leads in games 2 and 3, and they don't do a job. They don't shorten up. I mean, we've seen Peyton Stovall and even Wahiva Aloy and Peyton Holt just come out of their shoes swinging as hard as they possibly can when all you need to do is move a runner over. And so to me, that's kind of the concerning part for some of Arkansas's offensive struggles. But again, they're the top 5 team in the country. They're still right there in first place in the SEC West. I mean, if you lay out this scenario when the season starts, you're like, yeah, give me that every time. It's just there are reasons to concern yourselves. The pitching's phenomenal. Like bad weekends are certainly going to happen, but you'd like to see your offense go put 5 or 6 up every time. And right now they're not doing that on a consistent basis.
I was reading in the Athletic, they were talking about the one of the writers was at the Kentucky series, talked about how Hagen Smith probably be the top collegiate pitcher taken if
Yeah.
not number two. Um, his stuff's starting to wane a little bit from where he starts, but he's still putting up ungodly numbers. Arkansas has not lost with him
Hmm.
starting, which is good. Bad news is there's only one of them. And
Yeah.
it talked about Peyton Stovall as well, and he's starting to come into focus, which to me is incredible because it seems like every year the hitting kind of goes into a funk. But
Hmm.
it's also because teams scout and they know what your tendencies are and they adjust.
Right.
And so it becomes harder to hit because they know how to attack your weakness. And I think maybe we're seeing that now, but we're seeing it across the board too. So, hitting will likely come around. Guys come out of it. It is hard to make. I mean, nobody's Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn's not walking in that
Right.
door. It's hard to maintain that level over even a college season, much less a pro season.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, but what they need to do, they need to find some kind of consistency from Kendall Diggs. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't. He's been really scuffling, and I know he hit the home run. He had the big breakout against in game one against Kentucky, but he didn't do anything in games two and three. Nolan Souza has been MIA for the last couple weeks. I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot for Arkansas, and it's kind of been a revolving door in left field. They don't know who's going to play out there because they just can't get any kind of consistency and obviously the misplay ball that kind of opened the floodgates for Kentucky in game two, that should have been out number three. Tiger gets out of that frame. You've got a lead. You never know what happens from that point, but instead he doesn't understand on where on the field he is. The ball hits off the top of the wall instead of into his glove, and that was just kind of the unraveling, and it's what started it. Granted, Tiger wasn't great, but you never know. It's
Hmm.
kind of that hypothetical. And catcher's been a revolving position too. They can't get any kind
Hmm.
of consistency on the offensive side. All three have been pretty good catchers behind the plate, but they just haven't done much in the offense. But you don't need a lot from that position because you think
Hmm.
you're going to get some from right field, some from left field, some from third base, and it's just hadn't got a lot. To be honest, like Sprague Lot has really kind of scuffled down the stretch too. And so, I mean, all these issues for Arkansas baseball, and they're still number 5 or number 4
Yeah.
and number 3, depending what poll you look at, and still leading the SEC West. So, but
Yeah.
my question is moving into this, you got Mississippi State this weekend. You got the series at A&M next weekend, which is obviously going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
But say you go 4-2 down the stretch. Say you happen to win both these series, or even 3-3. You do whatever you want to do in the SEC tournament. My always opinion is you lose as fast as you possibly can.
Hmm. Get out.
Save your arms and get out. Do you risk starting Hagen Smith in game two? You're going to be the one seed. You're going to be at home. You know, and I don't know if you've noticed this, and maybe this is me reading too much into it. Hagen Smith
Hmm.
sweats a ton,
Oh
and
yeah.
as hot as it's going to be, do
This
you
is a
not save
sweater.
him for that late game on Saturday night instead of the afternoon game on Friday, which DVH likes to play? He likes that longer turnaround. And it also depends on who your number 4 seed is. Like if you get a Central Connecticut State again, you can start your number 2. You can roll Brady Taggart out there. But if you get
Hmm.
a solid number 4, like an Oral Roberts, like years past, a Dallas Baptist,
Yeah.
you might have to roll him out there just because your offense has scuffled so much.
Well, the one benefit of being a high seed is your number 4 should be weaker. Now,
Correct.
in theory, but we've seen that's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
The men's basketball bracket showed that. That's a great question. I mean, and that's one of those, flip a coin because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Your ace should overpower a 4, but your number 2 really, if you're that high
Should
seed,
also.
should also do okay.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
I would
I've kind of
almost
looked at it this
almost
way.
save it. I'm with you. I
Yeah.
think I'd save him for the Saturday game because really that is the more important game to
Mm-hmm.
win because then you're in the catbird seat and you got to lose twice. But if you for some reason don't win, it's like in Omaha. If you can get to 2-0, man, you're sitting pretty. But you got to get
Yeah.
to that 2-0 spot.
Yeah, but also even if you lose game one with your number 2 starter, all of a sudden you've got your ace with your season on the line, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what you want on too. I don't
Hmm.
think there's a disadvantage, especially when you're going to be a heavy favorite like you just mentioned against a 4. And I know the baseball regionals they try to make more regional, and so
Yes.
that's how you may get stuck with an ORU or a Dallas Baptist or maybe a Sam Houston State, a regional type team. But I mean,
Hmm.
but if you're lucky and like Arkansas should be, and they get one of those, like the SWAC champion or somebody like that, and all of a sudden you can roll out your maybe even a midweek starter and save your arms for the rest of the weekend.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I saw Little Rock on one of the projected brackets.
Yeah.
in with Arkansas. So yeah, who knows? I mean, it's a lot of baseball. Knock on wood, everybody stays healthy. But yeah, it's going
Right.
to be going to be not a crucial weekend, but I think really important to kind of have a bounce back weekend just to get some momentum back. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where I wish I miss the old school DVH: move runners over, move drive runners in.
Yeah.
It's but that's baseball, unfortunately. But I still go back, and I think we've mentioned it on this show. Omaha's a big park. You're
Yep.
not going to be able to play the long ball game in Omaha. No one ever has been able to. You have to manufacture runs, bump people over, hit to the gaps, move runners along.
Yeah.
So that always seems to be a great way to break out of a streak too. So maybe they need to bump more.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I think I've said this a couple times. I know we've talked to with Bertaccini on his show at Northwest Arkansas. We saw that when they played the midweek against Texas Tech, and I really thought
Hmm.
that that was the
Yeah.
point in the season we were going to start see Arkansas do that more often, and that was just kind of a 2 game, whatever you want, a 2 game stretch where they just like, you know what, let's play completely differently, and they haven't gone back to it, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, it's very confusing and it's very
Mm-hmm.
frustrating for Razorback baseball fans, no doubt. All right. Well, the other ball team on campus, the softball team, did get a bye to the SEC tournament. They
Mm-hmm.
will play the winner of Mizzou Auburn. We talked before the show, Alabama and LSU, two perennial powers in this league, are playing day one of the SEC tournament, which just blows
Yeah,
my mind.
and they're now in the 14th inning, mind you.
Wow.
2-2 in the 14th inning as we record this at 1:48 on Wednesday.
Crazy.
Sydney Berzone, the pitcher for LSU, has faced all 56 batters and has
Hmm.
now thrown 208 pitches.
How many hits has she given up?
8.
8 hits and what? Four
Mm-hmm.
strikeouts as we
Five. She's up to
started,
five. Up to
up to
five
five.
strikeouts now.
So they just
So
can't put the ball in play. That's
no.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That
UCA
is.
transfer Caleb. Yeah. UCA transfer Caleb Beavis started the game for Alabama. Two
Oh,
runs in
wow.
6 innings. And their
Hmm.
relief pitcher has now pitched 7 innings. So there's that.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, and that's the thing, too, about softball, where it used to be when Kat Osterman and Monica Abbott and
Mm-hmm.
all those, Tammy Kincaid, when Arkansas first started their program. I mean, she literally threw every inning of every game. Now teams
Yeah.
have multiple pitchers. You've the closer role's starting to come in just because it gives you a different look. We're seeing it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in high school, but it's a natural motion, underhand as opposed to
Yeah,
overhand, which is
it's
why
still got to be.
supposedly, yeah. But you still get tired,
Yeah, 208 pitches is a lot, and that doesn't even include
It
the
is,
warm-ups, like the 6 to 8 they get every 20 innings. I mean, so
yeah.
now you multiply that by 14 now that they've pitched. But say if you only take 6, say you take the low road there, that's 84 extra pitches. She has now thrown 300 pitches today.
Yeah. Well, but then again, when she was on the travel ball team and they played 5 games in a day,
That's true.
um, she might have thrown 500 pitches on
That's true.
Saturday. And,
That's a good point.
if they're loser, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But it is mind boggling because there's no pitch count in softball, but there is in baseball.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, but we also don't see every college softball pitcher having Tommy John surgery.
I can't think of one, but yeah, there's always there's always a first time. So, what will be a successful outcome for Arkansas softball team at the SEC tournament? Getting to the
Eh,
semifinals, or just getting out unscathed? More
Yeah,
importantly,
honestly, that. I mean, to me, when you're a team like Arkansas and you're locked in, you're hosting a regional no matter what. There's not a lot you can do at the conference tournament, to be honest. I mean, sure, you want
hmm
to go out there and win your games, and they actually have a normal conference tournament where it's a single elimination. They don't have the
yes,
ridiculousness that the baseball does. And so, I mean,
which
if you're
makes
going to
no
play the
sense.
games, yeah, I know they're going to that format next year, thankfully, with
Oh, are
Oklahoma
they?
and Alabama, with OU and Texas coming in. Yes, they're actually going to go to a 16-team single elimination tournament, which is going to be nice.
Well, I'm sure the baseball coaches have, and they have pleaded for that for years
Mm-hmm.
because they hate the double elimination thing. It makes no
Yeah.
sense, and it burns all your pitching up
Yeah.
before the NCAA tournament.
mean, you still got to win 4 games in 4 days. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole lot. But you don't have to start on Monday or Tuesday at least. You don't have to deal with
Yeah.
that tomfoolery.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about playing 6 games in 4 days and the
Hmm.
weather's always bad in Hoover. So, yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
it's insane. So, our next headline, which we touched on earlier, it's state tournament time. Of course, AAA
Hmm.
scoreboard.com right there is
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you
A
want
lot
to
of
go.
places. A
Yeah.
lot of places to go, and you're calling some games this week, right? In state tournament,
Yes.
maybe, maybe.
Yeah. 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 I'll
But
be,
we're not gonna we're gonna say which ones they are, or
no,
or even
no.
where they are.
Yes.
But
I
yeah,
will, yes, I will be, on the field being yelled at probably. So
yeah.
that's,
I'll
that's,
make sure. I think I may be coming to Northwest Arkansas tomorrow, so if I happen to see you, I will yell at something at you. Watch
okay.
the
Well,
hospitality room, sir.
there you go. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
got it.
Our next headline we mentioned last week, Chris Mortenson.
Yeah.
This has been on the list to talk about. I saw on Twitter the funeral, I believe was
Hmm.
Monday. Um,
Yeah.
did you ever get a chance to interact with Mort?
I talked to him at least on 2 different occasions. I ran into him at different events in Northwest Arkansas. Never really got too far into it. I just, we kind of talked NFL, and he obviously knew I covered the Razorbacks, and he always asked me about my fandom. Both times I talked to him, I remember him asking me about my fandom, and I was like, well, I'm more of an NFL guy actually, because like to me, college football's work. Sundays
Mm-hmm.
is the fun stuff, and we kind of got into like how I'm obsessed with the drafts and a few things, but it was a fun conversation. He didn't have to ask those questions. He could have just shook my hand and moved on. But it was really cool getting to interact with him the couple times that I had the chance to.
I never got the chance, but I always heard did because he had a studio when he first moved here
Hmm.
because Alex was playing quarterback, and they built a little studio for him near the bus barn on campus. And he would do all his ESPN stuff out there till he bought his house in Bella Vista, and they put a studio in there. But
Hmm.
he is one of the rare media people, and you can attest to this. The media will, if they've got something bad to say about you, they will say it amongst themselves.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
the worst. No one ever. Paul Eels and Chris Mortenson are the only two media people
Yeah.
I can think of that no one ever had anything even the least negative to say. Everything was positive. I mean, and that's pretty rare. And that's
What'd they say bad about
says
me,
a lot.
Blair?
Oh,
I'm
you haven't come
not
up
gonna put you on
yet,
the
but
spot there.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not gonna put you on the spot there.
no, I know what you're saying there. But I mean, um, and the old grizzled veterans, always like, oh, that
Yeah.
guy's a blah blah blah. No one
Hmm.
ever said that about Paul or Mort. I
Hmm.
mean, which is, not just the media, but the media are the worst because they all backbite each other. But
For sure they
I
do.
mean, amazing, and you hear all sorts of stories like that. He would converse with people all the
Hmm.
time. I mean, and it's rare because when we were on the air, I mean, granted it was fun, but it would get old after a while. And then you're a national figure like Mort. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't go anywhere, and everybody's wanting to talk. But always very gracious with his time, just amazing.
Yeah,
Which is
I agree.
so his type is rare, and they will be missed, no doubt about it. NFL related, the toast roast of Tom Brady. Did you watch on
So
Netflix?
I'm about halfway through it right now. It's three
Okay.
hours long, which is
Is it
unreal.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and so I was kind of hesitant, kind of like I was with the Apple TV series about the Patriots, which I have not
Hmm.
watched, just because I heard so many negative reviews about it.
Okay.
Um, but this one, like, there's so many excerpts and people talked about how hilarious it was. So I finally sat down to watch it. Then I realized it's 3 hours, and so I think it was two
Ooh.
nights ago. The wife and I sat down and watched the first half of it. It's
It's
raunchy and
yeah.
dirty and vulgar, but God, it's
Crude.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Belichick is 100. Whoever wrote that stuff for him deserves a pay raise, because it was
Really.
not. It was very well written, and his timing, probably because of his dry humor, was spot on
Hmm.
perfect. He was really really funny. Nikki Glazer, she's dirty and skanky, but she was
Yeah.
hilarious too. Also very fun to look at.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. It was 3 hours because
Yeah.
I mean, they hyped the heck out of it, and I would assume
Yeah,
it got pretty good rate. And you knew, well, Jeffrey Ross was hosting, so you knew it was
yeah.
going to be raunchy, which is part of why you have those people do it.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I guess there was one point Ross made a joke about Kraft, and supposedly Brady
Yeah,
went up and said,
he
nix
did.
that.
He
But
Tom Brady literally walked up to him and said, I think that, we have a TVMA rating on this. You can literally hear Tom
possibly,
Brady say, "Don't say that shit again."
yes.
And that was the only Robert Kraft joke that I heard through the first hour and a half. So
Which,
I'm thinking that they were told, one, don't talk about his kids, don't talk about Robert Kraft, because you don't get 90 minutes into a roast, because Rob Gronkowski gets torched through this entire thing.
yeah, that's what I
Drew
heard.
Bledsoe gets lit up pretty good too, but nobody said a word about Robert Kraft except that one joke about Rob from Jeff Ross.
Which is interesting because, well,
Yeah,
and that's the thing too. It's like if Jeff Ross is hosting your roast, I'm thinking the last thing you need to do is tell him what he can't say
yeah.
because
Well,
he's gonna
Kevin
do
Hart's the main
it.
host. Kevin
Oh, is
Hart's
he?
the main
Okay.
host, and then Jeff
Oh,
Ross is one of the roasters, I guess, if you will.
oh, okay.
I think
Which is
he and Nikki
he?
Glazer are pretty much like if Comedy Central or Netflix is doing it,
Yes.
they have to be on it.
Oh, he's like the roast master general. I mean,
Right.
if it's not a legitimate roast unless he's just destroying you.
Mm-hmm.
But I did hear listening to Cowherd the other day talking about it after the fact. He thought that that Belichick came out great in that because of the
Mm-hmm.
Apple TV series, which was very negative on him. It showed a different side of Bill.
Yeah.
So
And
we'll
he even
see
made a
what that
joke about that
parlays
himself.
into.
I don't
Yeah.
want to ruin this for people who watched it, but he goes, "Hey, welcome to the roast of Tom Brady," not to be confused with a 10-part roast of Bill Belichick that was on Apple TV. I mean, like he even
Ooh.
made a joke about it himself, and so like he could really poke fun at it. And honestly, I mean, he did a great job. And I know later in, like, he and Bob Kraft get on stage and take a shot together. So like it paints the picture like these guys actually like each
Hmm.
other and get along. That's not really
Yeah.
what's been painted in the national media.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard somewhere that Kraft and Belichick actually got together before the
Mm-hmm.
roast, and whatever they discussed is,
Yeah, and Ron Burgundy's
which
on
is
it, which
fine.
makes everything better too.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's the perfect perfect thing for
Yeah,
everything. I mean,
yeah,
what more do
absolutely,
you
it
want?
is.
Wow, but 3 hours, holy
Yes, three
Toledo.
hours. Yeah.
So, do you think who else? I mean, because Brady is one of those rare athlete, superstar, well known people that you could
Mm-hmm.
roast and get this kind of attention. I can't think of, I mean, I don't know that there's an NBA player that would draw.
There's t- there's two. Michael Jordan would
Well,
get it
yeah. Hmm.
because not only can you roast them, but who are the people who can take it?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
I don't
Jordan
think
could take it.
Jordan, but I don't think he'd want to go through it.
No, I agree because all the thing that would be brought up would be his gambling addiction and
Hmm.
all those things.
Yeah.
And the other one would be, and it'd be way too easy, and I don't think he's got the skin that's thick enough to take it. Is Tiger Woods,
Ooh. Yeah.
because there is so much ammunition
Oh,
for what you could throw at Tiger Woods. I don't know that he could take it.
you couldn't have Jeffrey Ross on that one.
Oh yeah,
He would just destroy.
they all would. I mean, but it'd be way too easy. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
because that's the beauty of the roast is like obviously Giselle caught a lot of stray bullets in this whole thing,
Hmm. And
and the
supposedly she's
jujitsu.
not happy.
Yeah, and I saw she put a statement out. But I mean, it's
Oh,
like if you're in the front row, I mean, like you're getting things shot at you. I mean, like I said, Gronkowski took a lot of bullets. Edelman took some shots at. I mean, but if you're Tiger Woods, it takes some guts, especially everything that everybody knows about Tiger and his struggles with the ladies. That'd be really tough to
oh,
convince yourself, hey, I'm going to go let these guys take free shots at me.
yeah, that would. Of course, I don't know. Does he have any? I mean, well, he doesn't have the endorsement deal with Nike.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah, no.
TaylorMade was it TaylorMade that picked him up?
Yes, yes,
He's got a new clothing line. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I don't see that happening. I do remember. I know I'm older. Do you remember the old Dean Martin roast? Have you seen those on YouTube?
I've not. No.
Oh my gosh, those were hilarious. They would pick like someone multi famous, and they man of the year or woman of the year, whatever, and they'd get Don Rickles. Uh, Gosh, Rickles was hilarious. I mean, they would get all these Foster Brooks, all these kids. They're on YouTube. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, they would just I mean, it was clean because it was on NBC, but it was
Right.
hilarious. I mean, they roasted Sinatra and nobody died. I mean, it was good stuff. So I almost wonder,
Okay.
if that might come back at some point. So
You thinking about it because I watched the first half. I'm pat myself on the back. I watched an entire half of an NBA game last night. Um,
really,
the guy, the NBC, the TNT show, the halftime guys, those guys would be pretty good at roasting each other. Shaq,
oh
Charles Barkley, Kenny
yes,
Smith. Shaq. Honestly, you could probably roast Shaq and he could take it.
oh yeah, without quite well.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we don't talk NBA, but there is talk the NBA may move away from TNT and go to Amazon. And a lot of people are wondering
Mhm.
what happens to the inside the NBA crew, because that is really probably the best thing the NBA has going outside of games.
Mm-hmm.
Would
ESPN would break themselves in half. They would go into Chapter 7 bankruptcy to hire Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. I am a firm believer of that. It
but
doesn't
would
matter
it?
who the host is. Ernie's good. I heard
Yeah.
Ernie's going to stay with TNT no matter what for their golf coverage and their college basketball. But ESPN would
Wow.
literally break the bank to hire Chuck and Shaq because nobody, no,
Oh yeah.
everybody's tired of hearing Stephen A. Smith.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you put Stephen A. Smith with those two guys and a host, it would be nothing but internet gold because they would be just ripping on Stephen A. for the entire time.
Yeah.
By the way,
Um,
Thunder are pretty good. I found that out
yeah.
last night.
Yeah. Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams.
Yeah,
Um,
well, Big Dan Gafford's on the other side for the Mavericks in this series. So there was one point in the first quarter that like all three were on the floor at the same time. I was like, that's pretty cool. Three
that
guys
is
in the
cool.
state of Arkansas that I saw play in high school.
Yeah, and two of them were high school teammates.
Yeah,
I mean, is that not amazing? Two
it's
guys
wild.
from Portsmouth Northside on the same team in the NBA,
Hmm.
and of course they had the camp this past summer. I mean, it
Hmm.
was just amazing.
Yeah,
And now that Gafford's finally with the team that can, you're just like, man, those first 3 or 4 years in the league where he was just kind of off and nowhere.
yeah.
Now his skills are being used. It's
Oklahoma City won by 22, and I know we're running out of time, and so you'd expect the plus minuses to be, obviously not in your favor. Dallas was only -2 when he was on the floor. I mean,
wow.
he plays meaningful minutes, and obviously it's a tough matchup with Holmgren, and Oklahoma City is a little smaller team anyway. But he played pretty well. I think he had 16 points, 8 rebounds last night. He played well.
You almost wonder what would have happened had he stayed and maybe played a year
Hmm.
under Muss, if that would
Oh,
have changed things.
yeah. He's fun to
Very.
watch. I mean, he blocks shots. He's active at the rim. He's turned into a lot better pro. Honestly, all three of them have. They've turned into a lot better
Yes.
pros than I ever thought they would.
Yes, no doubt about it. You can send us an email. You can follow us on X. Did you watch the Kentucky Derby and Arkansas horse won?
I did. Yeah, it was really cool. I didn't know that was the Arkansas horse. What's crazy is that horse finished third at the Arkansas Derby, and then it wins the Kentucky
Wow.
Derby because the
Wow.
winner's ineligible because it was a Baffert horse.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittman got to be in the Bucks. Final
Yep.
word today, Mr. Swofford.
AAA scoreboard.com. Watch them all.